Good afternoon, ma'am and classmates. I am Shalame G. Dakulan from BE Ed 2, a second year student. So my topic was all about special education versus mainstreaming versus inclusive. So first, let's define what is special education mean. Special education refers the practice of educating students in a way that provides accommodation that address their individual differences, disabilities, and special needs. Also called special needs education. The education of children who differ socially, mentally, or physically from the average to such an extent that they require modifications of usual school practices. Special education for people with disabilities became universal in developed countries by the late 20th century. To qualify for special education services, a student must have a documented disability that is covered by IDEA or Individuals with Disabilities Education Act and need special education in order to access the general education curriculum. Disabilities that qualify for special education include such as learning disabilities, physical, developmental, and many other disabilities. Special education provide accommodated education for students with disabilities include dyslexia. Dyslexia is the difficulty with reading, writing, spelling, and speaking. Dyscalculia, difficulties doing math problems, understanding time, and money remembering or math facts. Ang dysgraphia, difficulty with handwriting, spelling, and organizing idea. While dyspraxia, difficulty with hand-eye coordination, balance, fine motor skills. Auditory processing disorders, difficulties in interpreting what the ear hears, and visual processing issues, difficulty in interpreting what the eye sees. Students with these kinds of disabilities are likely to benefit from additional educational services such as different approaches to teaching, the use of technology, a specifically adapted teaching area, a resource room, or a separate classroom. Ideally, this process involves the individually planned and systematically monitored arrangement of teaching procedures, adaptive, adapted equipments and materials, and accessible things. These interventions are designed to help individuals with special needs achieve a higher level of personal self-sufficiency and success in school and in their community, which may not be available if the students were only given access to a typical classroom education. The description of special education can include a range of support services depending on the special needs of the student. Overall, special education is composed of a range of teaching practices specifically designed for the needs of individuals with disabilities who have special learning needs that are implemented by well-trained special education teachers and not normally seen or used by untrained teachers in a regular classroom. Special education is designed to ensure that students with disabilities are provided with an environment that allows them to be educated effectively. Individualized Education Programs or IEPs is a document mandated by the IDEA which clearly defines the individual goal and objectives set for a child with a disabilities. There are two main purposes of individualized program. Two main purposes of a student's IEP are to set a reasonable learning goals for the student and state the required services that the school district needs to provide for said child. We are done discussing the special education and now let's move on to mainstreaming. So what is mainstreaming about? Mainstreaming is the placement of a child with a disability or exceptionality in a general education classroom. The word mainstreaming comes from the concept that students with disabilities can be incorporated into the mainstream of education. To clarify, this means students who are part of the special education classroom will join the regular education classroom at certain times which are fitting for the special classroom student. Mainstreaming term is used as an informal way of describing the practice of including special needs students in regular classroom and giving them the exact same opportunities as any other kid to enjoy every aspect of the school experience, from academics to socialization. For us to fully understand what is mainstream, I have here a example. Example of mainstream education. If a children with a learning disability are attending classes as everyone else without being separated, this means they are being mainstreamed. So this is the example of mainstreaming education. Schools implement this practice where special students join in regular education classroom is that the federal government mandates it. That students must not be discriminated against because of their disabilities. They have also the right to be educated with the general education population. Here are some advantages of PWDs in regular classroom or persons with disabilities or being mainstreamed in general education classroom. First, higher self-esteem, develop better social skills, non-disability peers became more tolerant and accepted. Well, the disadvantages is trade-off with non-disabled students' academic education because the time and attention of the teacher will be taken away from the rest of the class to meet the needs of a single student with special needs. Second, teacher-students interaction. It is one of the disadvantages because students with disabilities requires a significant more amount of so much attention to the classroom teacher. So a third is social issues. In reality, students with disabilities are target of bullying with their classmates. We observe that many students with disabilities are experience bullying in school. The primary purpose of mainstreaming is to include students with disabilities within the traditional classroom while giving them the same opportunities as other students to access instruction, gain knowledge, grow as an individual, to participate in academic, and socialize with others. Here are some positive aspects of mainstreaming. It provides better opportunities for learning. The expectation of all the children are higher. It allows children to work on individual goals while being with other students their own age. It encourages the involvement of parents in the education of their children and the activities of their local schools. It fosters a culture of respect and belonging. It provides all children with opportunities to develop friendship with one another. So that's the positive aspects of mainstreaming. Based on the fact that a student with disabilities may benefit from being in a general education classroom, both academically and socially. Now let's go to inclusive education. So what is inclusive education? Also called inclusion is education that includes everyone with non-disabled and disabled people learning together in mainstream schools, colleges, and universities. The placement of a child with a disability in a general education classroom meant for all learners, meaning that all children are educated in general classroom. Inclusive education is when all students, regardless regardless of any challenges they may have, are placed in age appropriate general education classes that are in their own neighborhood schools to receive high quality instructions, interventions, and supports that enable them to meet success in the core curriculum. Inclusive education is not just limited to including students with disabilities, but is responsible for ensuring that their needs are met in the mainstream classroom as well. The focus when placing students with disabilities in an inclusion classroom is to help prepare them social and teach them to work at their own level. So here are some advantages of inclusion. First, tolerance and celebration of diversity. Traditional students learn how to mentor and help others who are impaired. Special needs children learn effective social behaviors modeled through the other children, higher expectations on the students, and access to the general curriculum. Implementing inclusive education requires flexible curricula that have been designed keeping in mind diverse learners. This is to ensure that multiple pathways are provided to students to reach the same goal, as opposed to the traditional or one size fits all methodology. Benefits not only the learners with disabilities, but those without disabilities as well, and helps build the capacity of teachers and school systems. And so I have here the benefits of the students in inclusive classroom. Both students with and without disabilities learn more. It improves social skills, higher self-concept, academic gain literacy, and fifth, better communication skills. So, mainstreaming education and inclusive education are quite similar. To only see the difference between the two, in a classroom setting, the mainstream child has no often or no additional support aside from the regular education teacher. While in an inclusion, the entire team support her to adjust in the classroom. In short, the difference between the difference between mainstreaming versus inclusive is is the support and expectations that the students encounters. And that's all for today's discussion. Thank you for watching and listening.